How long does it really take to master the fretboard? When I first picked up a guitar, I had one goal. I just wanted to be able to pick it up and play. What I didn't realize was that becoming comfortable on the fretboard is a lifelong journey. The longer I played, the more I understood one key idea. The more you think you know the fretboard, the more you realize there's actually a lot more to learn. Now I know that sounds daunting, but that's actually the most exciting part, because most guitarists don't get stuck because they're not practicing enough. They get stuck because they think that the fretboard is something you memorize. You start with cowboy chords, pentatonic scales, and learning some of your favorite songs. It's where everyone starts, and it's the stomping grounds for beginner guitar. But then you discover things like the cage system, triads, and melodic scale shapes. And suddenly you can move around the neck and just start finding your voice as a guitar player. But this is where a lot of players stop. You know enough to sound musical, but not enough to sound free. And I know that feeling because I've been there. In this video, I'm going to show you the breakthroughs that helped me stop memorizing the guitar and start understanding it. But I think to understand some of these concepts, you have to see what real progress looks like over the course of years, because it does take a while. I started playing guitar when I was 9 or 10 years old. I took lessons until I was 16. One of the things that I never learned how to do when I was that young was connecting the fretboard and learning music theory. Every Friday, I would go into guitar lessons and just pick a song to learn. And that was really all I cared about. I thought it was fun to learn how to play songs, but I never dove into actually connecting this instrument together and understanding it. I took a long break from 16 to about 24. And once I picked up the guitar again, I wasn't really interested in learning songs. I was interested in wanting to learn how to just pick this thing up and play what I'm feeling. Now when I picked it back up, I started learning things like triads. Learning triads and all the different triad positions on the neck was probably the first breakthrough that I had. And the reason was I didn't know that you could play the same chord in a million different ways on the neck. If we just take, for example, A, the notes don't change, they just kind of rotate. Once you see where all the triads are, well, guess what? Now you know where all the chord tones are. What do you need to make up a chord? A 1, 3, and a 5. 1, 3, 5. That realization was massive. And what's funny is once I learned triads, everything else seemed to kind of come after that in a very natural way. You learn the cage system, all the positions. I'm using the same notes across the fretboard. You're just playing a different pattern. That's all the cage system is. It's just patterns that connect the exact same notes that are in whatever key you're in. Again, that was another massive breakthrough, because now you know where all the chord tones are. You have these extra notes in that major scale. Now you have color notes to play with, right? Another realization I had that was massive, another breakthrough, was octave mapping. Basically, you take one note here, say G, and you can find all the other G notes relative to this one note. So you go over a whole step, skip a string, same note. This is 1.5 steps because it lands on the B string, but it's the same idea. It's just whole step down, move it over 1 fret because you're playing the B string. So you find one note, now you know where all the other notes are on the neck because of that octave mapping method. Another huge breakthrough, because you can use that method to find any note you want, basically. If you just move this note wherever it needs to go and you'll be there. Or you find the note basically on any string, and if you know, say we're on D, well, D is gonna be right here. Octave mapping, triads, and the cage system are what really helped me break through into that next level where I could kind of just play freely. At first, there was no real musical pizzazz to it. I think learning songs is a great tool to learn how to take these scales, chords, triads, and play them in a very musical way and connect them in very unique ways. And it'll kind of open your mind a little bit as to how much you can actually do with the knowledge that you have. It's a very long journey, right? I've been seriously studying music theory for a little over 3 years now, and it has been one of the deepest rabbit holes I've ever gone down in my life. But I think that's also what makes it so fun and rewarding, because the more you learn, the better you are as a player. The more you understand the instrument, the better you are as a player. My advice to anyone that's in that stage of learning the cage system and triads and octave mapping and things of that nature, learn that to the best of your ability and then proceed to move on. I wouldn't try and learn every single thing all at once. It'll feel like too much, in my opinion, and it'll kind of feel like you're overloading yourself. But if you just take things one step at a time, you'll be able to slow the process down and really see how those connections make sense. You've learned the cage system, you've learned triads, you've learned octave mapping. What's next? Well, some would say arpeggios, others would say modes. I think they kind of fall into the same realm. That's just kind of the natural progression after you learn those three. It's arpeggios and modes and how they work. Modes is something I'm still currently trying to get a good grip on. That's something that's really been hard for me to understand fully. I'm not really sure why. I think it might have been the way that I learned modes. I kind of learned the different positions of modes, like Ionian, dual Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian. So I learned these scale shapes, and you know, I was taught that, you know, if you take this scale shape and you just move it to the next note, so say we're in A major. Just start on the next note, now you're in B Dorian. Start on the next note. I don't know if you can tell that I'm kind of confused right now, because it still confuses the absolute out of me. Arpeggios, a little bit of a different story. Arpeggios are pretty easy to understand. You just take the 1, 3, and 5 of any chord you want and find them all the way up on each string in each scale shape. So learning arpeggios, learning the major chord arpeggios first, minor arpeggios next. It doesn't really matter. You could reverse those. And then moving into things like your major 7 arpeggios. Minor 7 arpeggios. I think one of the main breakthroughs that happened for me when I was learning arpeggios was when I was learning my minor 7 arpeggios. And I think minor 7 arpeggios are easier to see on the fretboard because you can see the exact scale shape that you're currently in. So if I take A minor 7 right here, we're in the D-shaped pentatonic scale from the Cage system. You're only playing certain notes, you're just not playing all of them. Here's the next pentatonic shape. Here's the A minor 7 arpeggio. Sits right in that scale shape. You're just omitting certain notes or playing certain notes. Playing the notes that are in the chord, the 1, 3, 5, and 7, which just so happen to live in that scale shape. Things like that are gonna be what take you to that next level. That fundamental understanding that everything is connected through scales, shapes, triads, patterns, and being able to recognize what shape or pattern you're in when you're playing. If you can see all the chord tones for all the different chords that you know, you can start to connect the chords. So if I don't know, go G to C, D, Now I can start sounding a lot more musical because I know where all of the different triads are for each chord. Same thing, you take a triad, A, right? Move it up a whole step. That A major triad now is a B major triad. Move it a half step. Because there is no full step between B and C, move it a half step, you get to C major, then D major, then E major, then F major, then G major, all the way back to A. That's how you know where all of your triads are for all of your different chords, because these triads are movable. You move them to create different chords. So now I'm gonna throw on a backing track so you guys can kind of hear what it sounds like when you begin to connect all of these different ideas. I'm not perfect, I'm not a perfect player. I'm just trying to give you guys the information that helps me understand the fretboard a little bit better. So I'm sure you guys can hear what I'm trying to say. You just combine everything and you're able to get really cool sounds. And another thing I would really encourage you to do is to turn on backing tracks in different keys, because you'll get a lot more comfortable learning where all the different scale shapes are if you play them in different keys, because you'll utilize different shapes for every key. I don't know how else to say that, unfortunately. You'll be able to connect them a lot faster down the road. And I think that is a very important thing to learn, obviously, because you want to be able to play freely all the way up and down the neck. And, you know, once you realize that the shapes just repeat after the 12th fret, then you're going to be in a pretty good position to learn everything a lot faster, because it's just the same up here as it is down here. You know, I've obviously gone through ups and downs with this instrument, just as any guitar player has. You know, I've had times where I've practiced for 8 hours a day for a month straight, and then I've had times where I've only practiced for an hour a day. You'll go through that, you'll go through those waves, and it's just important to not get discouraged. And if you do only play for an hour, just try and make it a productive hour, you know. Just try and learn something or refine something that you've been working on, and, you know, do something new, and you'll constantly keep progressing and getting better. So I just wanted to make this video for anybody out there that might be struggling with learning new things on the guitar, because I've been there and I know what it feels like. And it can be frustrating, you know, but take your guitar, lay in bed, and just figure it out. You know, it doesn't need to be plugged in order for you to learn new stuff. You just need to be able to see the fretboard and hear the strings. But yeah, My name's Nick. I love you guys. Catch you in the next one. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Catch you in the next one. Peace.